And they want to know what else I was told. Everything was said on the air, DOJ. Everything is done on the air around here. Total transparency is our rule. Now, going back to Joel Scalzo and worldaffairsbrief.org, sorry that break cut you off. Let me quantify what I'm saying in my question here, because I can ramble and babble. I, day one, thought it could be a secret deal between the globalists, like Hitler and Stalin dividing Poland, or the Allies making a deal and killing Patton and dividing Berlin and Germany. That's a classic imperial move by two crime blocs, two predatory blocs, as you would call them. And so I agree, I see that there. The larger issue is they've been trying to overthrow Putin. They've been playing a double game, and they have been invading some cities. I do agree that we see some stand-downs. I think it's just because things are in such flux. So I'm not denying that you're right, that there's a lot of pro-Russian forces in the government. Hell, half the country's Russian probably, or leans Russian. But, so I'm not saying they'll take the whole country over. I'm just saying, do you think there's a backroom deal to partition the country beyond just the Ukrainian government?
There's no backroom deal between the West and Putin to do any of this. Putin is running the show, and the West is letting him get away with it. There is no attempt by the globalists to overthrow Putin. They want a strong Russia. They want Russia to attack the West someday, so they're going to let him happen. But you'll notice here that Putin is slowing things down, as I predicted. If he wanted to race and have a justification for war, he would strictly send Russian troops in, invade, and force the West to contest him. He's not doing that. That's why it's very important to understand that he continues, even inside Ukraine, to use masked separatists, masked militarists that he calls a militia. Well, there's no militia in Ukraine at all. So these are militaristic creations of Russia. And what I want to predict to you is that there are 6 or 7 regions in eastern and southern Ukraine that he's going to take next, not by invasion, but just by using the same policy. And remember, Ukraine government could stop him in an instant by rushing in special forces very quickly, just small teams, to stop these attacks on police stations so that none of them were in effect. What we're seeing here, one after another, these police and city stations are falling because they know that no help is coming. It's the same thing that happened with Chiang Kai-shek in China. After the word got out that the U.S. was cutting off aid to Chiang Kai-shek, and that the Mao would continue to get aid from Russia, the poor soldiers in the barracks were just looking at annihilation. So they started to defect. And
the OSS and CIA personnel that got set up and basically killed on the ground and turned over to the communists, famously, of course, with what happened with John Birch. So expanding on that, it's been declassified, you know, what you were just saying about our government helping put Mao in, the greatest mass murderer in history, in '49. So I've got to say, I think your perspective in my gut may actually be an accurate one, and we see a romanticization of Putin kind of by folks that don't like the globalists. But, you know, at the same time, I agree with you. Russia's got to know, though, that they're being set up. I mean, they're as smart as we are, or smarter, I'm sure, with all their big brains over there. Or will it be their lust for power that ends up causing this World War III scenario?
Yeah, I'm not sure they really understand that they're being set up, that the globalists, they're really intending to strike the West someday, but they're being careful. Now, let me just continue before my 6 regions, or 6 or 7 regions. Everybody knows that the Donetsk region, which is in eastern Ukraine, is under assault, and that's probably on May 11th going to vote for some sort of autonomy or independence. Next is Zaporizhia and Kherson. These are on the south and the east, right above land bridge to Crimea. Then there's only 2 more regions, Mykolaiv and Odessa to the west on the southern border. If they take those, they've got a direct run right into Moldova, and Putin can then take Moldova. You see, he's encircling the western portion of Ukraine, and yet he's not invading. He gives the West no excuse to contest him because he's using these separatists or these rebels. And while the Ukraine government continues to put out evidence of direct Russian involvement there, it's murky enough that Putin can continue to get away with it. And I'll tell you, the NSA has spy equipment on this scene. They could reveal in detail lots of conversations that prove that Russia's in direct intervention here, and they are not doing it. To my mind, that proves that the West is not out to expose Putin's plan. They're going to let Putin play his role. And this is going to branch out into the Baltic states. It will branch out into portions of Poland, Belarus, and Georgia. Georgia's already been invited into the NATO military group. It's not NATO itself, but it's the German, Eastern European.
And that'll force a new Cold War, forcing different regions to join NATO and the EU, or join the Russians, ending independence in that area of the world, which is what the globalists really don't want.
Well, they don't want independence, you're right, but they do want Russia to continue to take back the eastern states. At some point, when Russia's ready, it's going to provoke, whether or not it's an eastern provocation, as I predicted, North Korea attacking South Korea, or Russia actually starting to actually invade some of these Eastern European countries and take the rest of them. Either one of those could provoke World War III, and he shows no sign of doing that. That proves my point. He's not ready yet. This is going to be a slow burn situation, but it is aiming for World War III. In fact, I'll tell you, in my speech to Norway and those people there, they would have been extremely reluctant to believe my scenario about World War III had it not been for what everybody sees now is real Russian strength starting to grow and show in Ukraine. And the sanctions, of course, are just tokenism. I can't believe the second round involves just adding another half a dozen people to the list of restricted bank accounts. I mean, if anybody can't see, the U.S. and NATO is simply not attempting to do anything to stop Russia. Nothing at all.
What about the issue of the State Department spending $5 billion to destabilize Ukraine and having advisors in there? If your idea is right, I know large portions of it are prima facie, on its face true, but if your overall view is correct, then there's got to be a nexus at the highest levels where the system is actually opening the door for Putin and did this overthrow so that their own sleeper cells from the Russian side could then have this excuse to have these regions claim that they want autonomy.
Well, we have to remember that this $5 billion figure was strictly from one source. This was Victoria Nuland talking to a pro-Ukrainian audience, and I don't believe that that $5 billion by any means was ever spent inside Ukraine. You can't, in a country like Ukraine, inject without it showing up, obviously. There's just no way. It's way too much.
You think she just said that to then even legitimize what Putin's doing more?
Well, what I think she did, I think she was exaggerating. I think $5 billion is probably the black budget for all of the post-Eastern European states, and none of that hardly gets into the country. Most of that is to German foundations and Austrian and Hungarian and Romanian globalist foundations. Most of it's going to their own kind of people. And yes, they are giving scholarships. They are throwing that money around in others. But that money was not injected directly into Ukraine. Otherwise, it would have showed up. Audience there and using the figure for all of Eastern Europe as if it applied strictly to Ukraine.
All right. Well, Joel, we'll have you back for a full hour soon. I appreciate you coming on. We're about to go to Tosh Plumley, but I'd like you to give your take on the new Benghazi revelations, the hour-long press conference going with Carney on the ropes, the fact that the White House did lie on record, and the State Department said they had no emails, knew nothing for 8 hours, and now we know minutes into it they were watching it, putting out talking points. Why has this been released now? Is the system getting ready to take down Obama? Or what do you make of this?
No, I don't believe it's taking down Obama. What is very interesting about this whole email controversy is that Obama and Hillary Clinton play zero role. There's zero reference in any email to Hillary Clinton or Obama, and that proves my point that they have nothing to do with the running of day-to-day operations of the government. These are national security councils and advisors and State Department people, long-term cadres that are running this globalist show, and they're simply the figureheads and the puppets. But remember, even though what Tosh Plumley says about the running of guns and those types is absolutely true, the real smoking gun of the Benghazi thing is the stand-down order, and nobody is picking that one up like a hot potato, even though General Ham said directly to a Congress congressional committee, there was a stand-down order given to me, and I was relieved within 2 minutes of refusing that order. And not a single congressman asked him, who gave that stand-down order to you? Don't you find that odd? That a congressman who should be shocked at that would have asked, well, who told you to stand down? Not a single one did so. And that's the big smoking gun. Nothing, I believe, is going to blow wide open unless the establishment lets that one go. And the chances of blowing that open are 0 to nil. Even Ham has not come out since his retirement and said who it was. Neither has Admiral Goyette, who both had a stand-down order.
That's the big issue, and we'll bring that up with Tosh Plumlee. Thank you so much, Joel Skousen, worldaffairsbrief.org.
My pleasure, Alex.
Or is it .com? And again, I'm Alex Jones with Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. Now, I'm not going to go over his whole bio.